Road Rash 64. For me to begin talking about this game, we have to go back. Not all the way back to 1999 when it released, but when little 7-year-old Lofty stumbled across the game. All my life, my mother's enjoyed going to thrift stores, yard sales, flea markets, and consignment shops to see if she could find any hidden treasures. She got this hobby from watching Antiques Roadshow almost every night, and she would see where people would find something at these little shops and sales, paying a tiny amount of money, and lucking into something that was worth much more money. Hasn't happened yet for her, but one day in the summer of 2002, I stumbled across what would become a core memory for my childhood. When I was younger, I was always on the hunt for video games, and I was always a few years and sometimes even a full console generation behind. The silver lining on that is that I would regularly find games for a few bucks at all these little shops. As we walked into one of our usual stops, I wandered over to where the toys and kids section were, because this is usually where these shops would throw these video games, and I spotted an N64 cartridge. It wasn't gray like the normal ones, it was black. I picked it up and the label said Road Rash 64. Stoked to find another game to potentially add to my collection, I brought it to my mom and she tossed it into her shopping cart. It probably cost between $3 and $5. These games always did when you found them at these little shops. This was before retro games started to have such a big price tag attached to them. I got home and I put the cartridge into my black Nintendo 64 and I grabbed my favorite purple see-through controller. The music started up and I turned it down immediately because it was rock music. My parents didn't like rock music or anything other than gospel music really, so I made sure the volume was as low as it could go while I was still able to hear a little bit. I picked my favorite character, the one I always picked because he kind of looked like Spider-Man. I figured it was just another racing game. I loved racing games. I was always playing Need for Speed or other games similar to that. I consumed as much racing game media as I could. The race started, and the next thing I knew, I took a tire iron to the teeth. What was that? Did that guy hit me? Can I do that? So I started pressing buttons until, wham! CTE. Not to me, to the other guy. I just kept swinging and swinging until the guy on the bike next to me yelled and flew away. I kept playing and learning different ways to crash opponents for the rest of the day until my dad came home. He looked into my room, saw what I was playing. I plugged up another controller and he sat with me and we played the multiplayer mode together. We'd race each other, and every time one of those characters went flying, he would mimic the sounds they made, and I would laugh even harder. Before long, every day that he came home, we would play this together. While messing with the controls one night, he discovered that you could press 2 of the C buttons at the same time, and it would stick the weapon in your hand out at a weird angle. And if you timed it just right, it would bing! We laughed and would always try to target each other with this attack specifically. We eventually discovered the other modes where you can fight each other, as well as a mode with special maps that take more laps to complete. Short, but one wrong move and you're done for. This lasted a few months, and I have some very, very fond memories of playing this game with my dad. However, one Sunday, the pastor at the church we were attending mentioned in a sermon about making sure you let your kids consume media that are age appropriate. Something in that message really spoke to my father, and when we got home, he took all of the teen-rated games that I had in my collection. One of those games, unfortunately, was my beloved Road Rash. I was very upset, and I remember trying to bargain with him just to get it back. He told me that as soon as I was the age on the ESRB rating, I could have it back. 6 years later. That was almost half my life at this time. Felt like it would never happen. Defeated, I resigned myself to waiting until I was old enough to revisit what I considered to be my favorite game. Until one day, my dad was picking out a tie for me to wear to church on a Sunday from his closet, and I spotted it. The black Nintendo 64 cartridge on a stack of my other T-rated games he had taken. Now, I knew where it was hidden. I was always a very impulsive kid. I've gotten pretty good at keeping my impulses under check as an adult, but when I was 7, I didn't have any problem with stealing it back. So I woke up the next morning, made sure he was gone for work, and once I confirmed that his car was gone, I opened his closet and I snuck it out. I played it all day long until I heard his car turn back into the driveway, and I ran back into the closet and hid it again. This went on until I reached age 13, and my stack of games was returned to me. I eventually told my dad a month ago that I did this. He feigned outrage until he started laughing. He told me he was worried that the violence in the game would have negatively influenced me, and I think without him taking the game away from me when he did, today I would probably be racing motorcycles and taking 4 times damage pool cues to the noggin.